Bengals now 6-8. They got the breaks they needed elsewhere in the NFL this weekend. By the way, 5 of their 6 wins are on the road. Can we get some love in Cincinnati here over these next couple of weeks? We'll find out. You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. Thank you for joining me here on a gloomy and rainy Monday in Ohio, but it feels a little bit better when the Bengals get back-to-back wins on the road on a short week. And yeah, that sounds good. And in the NFL, winning 2 straight is good no matter what. It's especially good when you do it on the road, when you do it with one less day to prepare, and you get a double-digit victory. And sure, it's the Titans, and they stink, and they're in the running for the number 1 overall pick, and their head coach is your old offensive coordinator, so he knows you pretty well. There's a lot to like. On the surface, at a surface level, there's a lot to like about what's gone down in Bengaldom over the last 7 days, but there's a kind of a big but here, isn't there? There's kind of a big but when you scratch just below the surface, because the team we saw in Nashville on Sunday, they got a win. They got a double-digit win. They were up 16 with a minute to play. That's good. That's great. Cool. That team we saw on the field would not beat a great NFL team. That team would not beat the Ravens or the Steelers or the Eagles or the Lions or the Bills. That team wouldn't beat the Broncos. They wouldn't beat a fringe team. I don't think they would beat Washington if they played them again. The Bengals are lucky once again. So they get another little lucky break for the second week in a row, although the Monday night one I've talked about, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I would call that karma. 14 penalties. 14 penalties for the Bengals on Sunday. 4 turnovers. Count them, 4 turnovers, including Jordan Battle's turnover, the bonehead play of the year, one that encapsulates the Bengals season in one little moment. Very exciting. That's what they've been all year, right? Oh boy, this is fun. And then boom, a slap in the face there at the end. This is a team that, again, I don't know that they played down to the level of their opponent on Sunday, but I think if you listen to this show, you know I'm probably more optimistic than most when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals. But if you can tell by the tone of my voice right now, coming off back-to-back wins, wasn't pretty, was it? It wasn't pretty. That Jordan Battle play was the Bengals season in a nutshell, right? Fun. Get to the end and whoops. It's what we've seen all year. The Bengals are very talented. We know that. They've got a great collection of talent. But talented does not equal good in the NFL. We've seen this time and time again. How many times have we seen NFL teams, and this isn't the way the Bengals have done it, but how many times have we seen NFL teams? I mean, Washington was famous for this. Remember Philly? If you've been around a while, you remember the Vince Young Dream Team with the Eagles. How many times have we seen a lot of talent on an NFL not necessarily translate? And this isn't always the case. This is more the exception than the rule. How many times have we seen a lot of talent on an NFL team not translate? You can have great talent without having a great team, and that's what the Bengals have been this year. That's what they are. Very talented, not very good. So where does that fall? Who's responsible for taking the ingredients and making a 5-star dish? And I'm not saying they have all the ingredients to be a 5-star dish, but they certainly have enough ingredients to be one of the top 7 dishes in the AFC, and it's going to be a struggle to get there. This was with Joe Burrow playing the whole season. That was supposed to be the floor, was a wild card. Bengals on the outside looking in, and let's talk about that. We talk about where does this fall? Where does a lot of talent but not the results you want fall? I think we all know it falls on the coach. He's the one putting all these ingredients together. And that is why Joe Burrow, and you all saw it. If you didn't see it, I actually didn't catch it in the moment because I was at a family event watching this game for the first time on my phone. We all saw Joe Burrow fired up at Zack Taylor on the sidelines with 1 minute to go, up 16 points, right? Big lead. Game is in hand. The Bengals are going to win for the second week in a row. And you can tell Joe Burrow, we can't necessarily tell what Zack Taylor's saying because his back's turned to the camera, but you can see Joe Burrow. You don't have to be an expert lip reader to see him say, F that, it's embarrassing. We're 6-8. It's embarrassing. Those were clearly the words that Joe Burrow said to Zack Taylor. They both kind of downplayed it a bit in the post-game press conference. Burrow admitted that he was frustrated that they were sloppy out there. He told the media afterward that's why he was frustrated in that moment talking to his head coach. What I really think Joe is trying to convey to his head coach there is, hey man, get on my level. We don't know what Zack Taylor said right there. We can probably, because Joe Burrow was pissed on the sidelines. He turned the ball over 3 times. That is not something he does. He had only thrown 6 picks coming into yesterday. He threw 2 and gave a fumble away as well. Joe Burrow, so Zack Taylor's probably coming up and saying, hey man, we got another win. It's a good one. Let's take this one, get some momentum rolling forward. And Joe says, are you kidding me? Now this is my interpretation or my educated guess of what likely went down there. Zack Taylor probably comes over and says, hey man, chill out. We got to win. Woohoo! And that's been, if you listen to the show, that's been my problem with Zack Taylor all season. He's yelling at the refs yesterday with a smile on his face. Excuse me? This isn't Pee-wee, brother. He does this all the time. Joe Burrow, his lifeblood, once again gets smacked in the helmet by Jeffrey Simmons. And I don't even remember if that was a play. But on multiple occasions when Zack Taylor is bemoaning the refs this year, as he should, as every head coach should, and mostly does, he's doing it with a smile on his face. What Joe Burrow is saying to Zack Taylor in that moment is, get on my level. Get a fire lit under your ass and get on my level. There's nothing to come over here and say, hey, pat on the back, buddy, about. You are 6-8. The expectations are different here with Joe Burrow and Zack Taylor, and I think that's probably an issue. Zack Taylor's got to raise his, or he's probably got to go. And boy, yes, you've all known someone, or you've at least heard of someone who as a child kind of had to be the parent as they got older, like when they were 12 or 13 or 14, whenever. It was kind of clear they were the more responsible person in their household, and they kind of had to take over. They kind of were the ones telling the parent what to do and what not to do at times as they got older. Kind of what we're seeing here. It's Joe Burrow's 5th year in the NFL. It's Zack Taylor's 6th season as a head coach in the NFL. Joe Burrow is saying to him, no. We don't do that. We don't cheer about being 6-8. Are you kidding me? Joe Burrow has become the adult in the room. He turned 28 last week. He's growing up. That's our beautiful boy, Joe. He's growing up. He is the adult in the room now. He is the one telling his head coach, the leader of this team and franchise, he is the one telling him, no, not good enough. That's where we're at. If Zack Taylor, by the way, and I think Zack Taylor comes back in 2025, but if he does not, that's the clip that we will look back at and say, yep, there's where it was. I think the only way Zack Taylor doesn't come back is if Joe Burrow, I don't know if he gets asked about that in the offseason. I don't know if he goes to management, but I think the only way he doesn't come back is at the request of number 9. And I think Joe, probably like a lot of us, certainly like me, really likes Zack Taylor. Would love to go on vacation with him, would love to have his family over for a nice turkey dinner. But you got to have an edge in the NFL, and I just don't see it with Zack Taylor again and again and again. And I think Joe Burrow showed us on Sunday he kind of agrees. At least in that moment, he agreed. For me, I've got a big enough sample size to say I don't know that Zack Taylor quite has the grit, to take one of Dan Campbell's words, quite has the grit to do what you need to do to be an NFL head coach. You're smiling at the refs when you're 5-8, going on 6-8, trying to bark at them for a call. I'll say this, man, that video, and maybe I'm overthinking it, but I've never felt more like, boy, Zack Taylor might be on the hot seat. I've always kind of thought the only way he goes is if Joe wants him to go. I think Joe does. I don't know if he does. He certainly should have as much say as anyone in that building, if not the most, on who the head coach of this team is. I think he's earned that right. But I've never felt like, whoo. And I think Zack Taylor's got to know that too. Maybe there's more of this we're not seeing, but that wasn't a good look for Zack Taylor. And usually when something like that happens, when there's a confrontation between the head coach and a player, and I don't even know if it was a confrontation, I would say it was more of a, hey man, what are you talking about moment. Usually the head coach doesn't just kind of pat himself on the thigh and walk away. I don't know if Zack Taylor has what it takes. He can get it. Maybe. I don't know. But I don't know if he has kind of the edge that we need, that any NFL team needs to get you over the hump. Fact of the matter is, a team with expectations like the Bengals had just a few months ago, they don't play the way this team did on Sunday in Nashville. Even with a win, yeah, you got to win. You played a stinky Titans team. They were rotating quarterbacks between Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, who sucks. They're both really bad. I said it last week, Will Levis might be the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. I feel bad for him, I really do, but those are the facts. And it's just the same story with the Bengals. You got too much talent to be that sloppy. Joe Burrow knows it. I'm not sure Zack Taylor does. Joe is seeing the big picture here. Zack was happy in the moment, and that's fine. You deserve that. I know that Zack Taylor puts a lot of work in. I know he cares. But at the same time, you can't, this isn't Pee-wee. It's not Pee-wee. You don't get all excited because you won a game against the 3-10 Titans. It's fine to be okay with it. But seemingly everyone else was like, what the hell? What was that slop fest? Meanwhile, the head coach, you think Bill Belichick is going up to Tom Brady after that game and saying, hey, we got him, on to the next one? You think Andy Reid's smiling after the game? Well, Zack Taylor wasn't smiling after the game. You think Andy Reid's going up to Patrick Mahomes and saying, hey, we committed 14 penalties, you turned the ball over 3 times. That's okay. We'll do better next week. We've just got to win the next 3 in a row and get a lot of help, an insane amount of help to make the playoffs. But that's okay, buddy. You think the great head coaches are doing that? You think Mike Tomlin's doing that? No. Zack Taylor, on the other hand, a little too happy-go-lucky at 5-8 going on 6-8 yesterday. Simple as that for me. Joe Burrow wants to be great. I don't know that Zack Taylor has that same dog-in-him DNA that Joe Burrow has. And if those two things aren't aligned, is there someone out there who would be on the same page as Joe Burrow? That's the question I think the Bengals management and Joe himself have to ask this offseason, and maybe they're already asking that. But that, to me, that little clip, that little 7-8 seconds, whatever it was that Fox caught, kind of affirmed everything I've kind of been saying about Zack Taylor for the last couple month or so, whatever it is. Just don't know that he has it. Don't know that he has that dog that you need in you, as the kids would say. Okay, that's enough on that. Let's get into some other stuff. That's really kind of the big takeaway, right? Those two things. Bengals stunk and still won, and I have said before that good teams find ways to win even on bad days. And I think the Bengals they're a good team. They're not what we expected. And by good, I mean above average. They're not going to be in the field of 14 in the playoffs. I think they're probably right in that 12 to 16 range, 10 to 16 range. They're not in your top 10 power rankings, but they probably be 12th, 13th, 14th. If you're just going on offense, it's obviously a different story, but this is a team game with both offense and defense. So, speaking of Joe Burrow, on Sunday, he threw a few more TD passes. He now has 36 on the season. That is the most that a Cincinnati Bengals quarterback has ever thrown in one single season. Of course, there are 3 games left. If Joe throws 4 more touchdowns in these next 3 games, which I think we all think he will do, he will become the 11th quarterback in NFL history to throw for 40 or more touchdowns in a single season. So let me say that again. 4 more touchdown passes for Joe Burrow in these next 3 games, and he will have at least 40. Only 10 guys have currently done that. They're all names you know. It's the Brady, it's the Manning, it's the Rodgers, it's those guys, Marino, Breeze. It's those guys. Joe Burrow would be the 11th one to join that club. And a lot of people will say, well, they had 16 games back then. Okay, so Joe needs to throw 4 in his next 2, which he will probably also do. Also, you can't play that game forever. What are we going to do? Is it going to be 20-48 and we're going to be like, well, such and such caught someone who isn't even born yet. Yeah, he caught 26 touchdown passes this year, but Randy Moss had 1 less game to do it. No, we can't do that forever. I got people online saying like, well, do we need to look at... I don't know. I'm not going to do the math. I didn't change the number of games in the league. You got an issue with it, talk to Roger freaking Goodell. Anyways, the point here is that's a wasted season. One of the best 11 in, as far as passing touchdowns go. So I looked it up. Of those 11 quarterbacks, so a lot of these guys have done it multiple times, right? Like Brady, Marino, Breeze, all these guys. Rodgers, I think all of them except Andrew Luck and Russell Wilson, of the 10 who have done it, I think all of the other ones have done it at least twice. So Burrow should get in for the first time. Only twice has a quarterback in NFL history. I looked this up. God, I hope I didn't miss anything, but I'm about 98.6% sure this is accurate. Only twice in NFL history has a quarterback thrown for 40 or more touchdowns in a single season and missed the playoffs. Dan Marino in 1986 and Drew Brees in 2012. Those guys both threw 40 and missed the playoffs. Our beautiful boy Joe Burrow seems likely to join that list here in about a month. So, unfortunate. I've had this thought. I've never talked about this. Maybe I'll get into it in the offseason. I do think that Joe Burrow has very much an opportunity for his career to look a lot like Drew Brees's. And obviously, that's like his favorite player growing up. That's the reason he wears number 9. But similar situation, right? Bengals and Saints, kind of similar franchises. I'd actually say the Bengals are a bit more competent in general. The thing that Drew Brees got was a really good head coach in Sean Payton. Goes back to what I was saying there a minute ago. Is there someone who can be better than Zack Taylor? I'm not saying I dislike Zack Taylor. He's doing a bad job. I don't think anyone's saying that. But you got to ask, can we be better in that area? So I think Joe's career has an opportunity to look a lot like Drew Brees's. What we have to say as fans and followers and people who are, follow this team, is that good enough? I think so. I'd take 1 Super Bowl. That's really all I want. I'm not greedy. Sure, it'd be nice to get 3. It'd be nice to get 2. It'd be nice to get 7. But if we're realistic here, I think Joe Burrow's career being right there with Drew Brees, I think that's possible. And I think that's something we'd be happy with. Wasn't Brees, didn't he get that awful call too that sent the Rams to the Super Bowl? So he kind of got jobbed a little bit. Well, Joe's on that route too. I mean, at this point, I think a defensive end could take a flamethrower out on the field, shoot him 4 seconds after he throws the pass, and a ref wouldn't throw a flag. So there's that as well. So anyways, an awesome season for Joe Burrow. Speaking of awesome seasons, Jamar Chase, we've been following the Triple Crown for him. He still leads the NFL in receptions at 102. I believe Amon-Ra St. Brown is second with 95. He is first in yards with 1,413. He's got like 200-yard lead on his friend Justin Jefferson, fellow Tiger. And he leads the NFL with 15 touchdowns. Terry McLaurin, I believe, is second there with 11. So he's still in the lead for all these. He didn't get a touchdown on Sunday. But he's still in the lead for the Triple Crown, which I think is pretty cool. That'd be quite the achievement to have for him going into a contract year. And yeah, I still want to see him get 4 touchdowns. Because if he gets 4 touchdowns in these next 3 games, he's at 19, which puts him in sole possession of 3rd place on the single season touchdowns list, right behind Randy Moss and Jerry Rice, a couple of decent receivers themselves. Let's talk a little bit about someone who's not so much a star, but certainly seems to be headed that direction, at least with people who follow Cincinnati. According to the 33rd team, which I think does a pretty cool job of, talking about things about the NFL, Amarius Mims, the rookie right tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals, did not allow a pressure on Sunday. The Titans have a few guys. I mean, like Jeffrey Simmons is obviously the star, but they're not a terrible pass rushing team. We saw Joe running for his life a few times on Sunday. I think they did get better as the game went on. Obviously, you're starting Devin Cochran. It's a whole different ball game. But what a bright spot. If Amarius Mims can stay healthy, and that's kind of the concern with him, that's going to be a really good get. I've come on here, and it's been well documented that the Bengals have not drafted well the last few years. If they can get a really good, he's looking really good at right tackle. That would be a big bright spot for them and something they could depend on a rookie contract for the next few years. So Amarius Mims getting better as the year goes on. I think the Bengals really got a winner in that guy. And again, is right tackle the sexiest topic to talk about? Nope. I'm not here to be sexy, baby. I'm here to give you the facts, and Amarius Mims has been awesome. Much better than I think anyone could have really hoped for in his rookie year. And it's just good to see. It's good to see. You got to keep, if you keep you see what he does when he doesn't have a clean pocket. Imagine what he would do if he consistently had one. So there's that. It's interesting. The Bengals and the Browns got flexed out of the Thursday night game for this week and moved to Sunday, which I think most of us prefer. But the game that got moved in is the Broncos and the Chargers, which is now a massive game for the Bengals. If the Broncos win, the Bengals really need to win out and have the Broncos lose out to get in the playoffs. That is unlikely. However, the Broncos have the Chargers this week, and then they get the Bengals, and then they get the Chiefs. So there was, and I mentioned it on the podcast here, there was a viral video that went around about how the Bengals went in the playoffs. It wasn't completely accurate. It probably was, but technically there are some other ways. But I'll put it this way. We want the Chargers to win on Thursday Night Football. The Bengals winning out and the Broncos losing out is the clearest path. The Dolphins and the Colts will both have to lose one more as well, but that seems very possible, if not likely. The Broncos, I just mentioned the hard path they have. However, if they were to beat the Chargers, who have now lost 2 in a row, by the way, if they were to beat the Chargers on Thursday Night Football, it doesn't technically knock the Bengals out. There is still a path there where the Bengals could get in, but it would involve the Chargers then being out of the playoffs, and the Chargers being out of the playoffs involves them losing their final 2 games, which are at New England and at Las Vegas, 2 really bad teams. I just don't see John Harbaugh and Justin Herbert allowing that to happen. So, while technically the Broncos don't have to lose 3, as we previously thought, they kind of do. The Chargers aren't losing those back-to-back games. So, it's really a big one. We're big Chargers fans on Thursday night. And then you get that one. The Bengals beat the Browns on Sunday. And then the Broncos and Bengals go head-to-head. And suddenly, the winner of that, that's damn near a playoff game, right? I think if that were the case, I think the winner would, the winner, I believe, would clinch, although I'm not sure. It's too complicated. But I can just say, whatever I'm saying here is at least a 90 to 95% chance, right? So if the Chargers beat the Broncos on Thursday night, that would be really big for the Bengals' playoff chances. Of course, the Bengals then have to beat the Browns, who suck, on Sunday, and we'll go from there. It's hard to figure all these things out. I'm not trying to knock on anyone when I say something wasn't technically accurate, because no one's good at it. I don't even trust the computers with this stuff. It's so hard to figure out when you get into the tiebreakers and the strength of schedule. It gets tough past that head-to-head win and the conference and the division standings, all that. It's complicated stuff. But what I can tell you in the simplest way is you want the Chargers to win on Sunday or Thursday night. That will be a huge one for the Bengals. You should be rooting for that as hard as you should be rooting for the Bengals to win on Sunday. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of we're used to, if there's a Thursday night game that we're really rooting for, it typically involves the Ravens or the Steelers. But, little something. A great weekend of football, by the way. You got that one on Thursday night, which is good for us. On Friday night, you've got the first ever college football playoff game in the field of 12 with Notre Dame, Indiana. You got 2 NFL games on Saturday. We've got the Chiefs and Texans. We've got the Steelers and Ravens. That's on Saturday, in addition to the 3 college football playoff games. And then your usual full slate of NFL games on Sunday. I'm going to ignore my wife and child all weekend and watch football and be a terrible person. It's just what I have to do. It's mid-December. I'll make up for it with the wonderful Christmas gifts. It's how it's going to go. It's how it has to be. It's what I need right now. Although, if the Broncos win on Thursday night, I'll probably go be a good husband and father. Okay, this podcast is called In the Jungle. If you like it, please tell a friend about it or give it a rating, give it a comment. I reply to all the comments as much as I can. So if you want to chat, I love it. That's why I do it. It's a lot of fun. My name is Matt Edwards. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Matt Edwards. I still don't have any other social media where I do stuff. It's just too much. I'm thinking about maybe getting into the Reddit stuff. If anyone's here and post on the Bengals Reddit regularly, let me know. Should I hop on there? Or is it a bunch of nut jobs? There's a lot of Reddits that are fun. And then there's a lot where it's just kind of idiots. So let me know. Let me know how it is. Or don't. And I'll go figure it out for myself. But, I could use a little help from my friends. So, okay, it's In the Jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. Appreciate you tuning in. We will have another episode out this Friday. So we'll know what the Broncos do, and we'll get ready for Bengals Browns at Paycor Stadium.